is not a thing. It don't exist.
Go backstage and cry for help.
AVP.
It's the Steiner section.
My repping the match is black.
It is your boy Jackson Steiner. What the fuck am I saying?
No. My repping the match African Americana.
Oh my lord.
Can someone clip that?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Roblania Talk. Today I'm here talking with D-Pain and Jackson Steiner. How's everyone doing today?
Doing pretty good. Doing really good today, actually.
Yeah, it's
vibing.
pretty good day for me, I'm not gonna lie.
It's great to hear. So, Dewwy, you recently were in a chamber match, right?
Yep. Not even like from when this is being recorded. Is this live or is this like just being recorded?
It is live, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, like just a few minutes ago, after the WPW pay-per-view, or before the pay-per-view ended for WPW, I won the World Heavyweight title in a chamber match. So that was kind of you never get used to these things, but it was a fun match because I won. So
How difficult was it?
I will say it was easy in the sense of I came out last. If I had to start first, then that would be like a pain. But I was one of the last entrants out of 6 instead of 8. I had to 1v1 Ominous. I somehow got through him because he's the champion. So that's like, oh, well, new champion's being crowned. It was me, Kayle, Ethan Saber Jr., and Jordan Saber Jr. Vine Damien, and I'm trying to remember the other person, but he got eliminated so fast. I kind of feel bad that I forgot his name off the top of my head. But I think Various was his name. At least that was his name on Discord, so I can't fully remember it. But somehow outlasted them because like no one had been eliminated when I entered, so it was still just all 6 in the chamber. People started fighting. I ended up 1v1ing Ominous. Then Kayle got teamed, unfortunately. Then it was Damien versus Ethan. Ethan won. Then I 1v1'd Ethan. I won, and now I'm the new heavyweight champion. So that's kind of how that match went for me.
Yeah. If you had to say who would be your hardest opponent, like in the past?
Hardest opponent. I mean, I feel like overall probably Diddy. I hated fighting Diddy. I hated fighting Diddy with a passion. He was scary, to say the least.
Yeah.
There's been a couple. You know, Sage was never easy to beat. He used to be easy, and then he got really good, and then he just took over at that point. You saw how his career took off after that. Damon, dare I say his name with all that's been happening with him lately, but he was always difficult. Clutcha was difficult. Eddie, not so much. I kind of went through Eddie pretty, not easily, but he wasn't as difficult as people kind of built him out to be. Brock, kind of, I feel like we're always neck and neck. He's probably my one true rival, probably just because of the timeline we've been doing things. Just all of those guys. I never got a chance to fight like Isaac or anybody like that, so I wouldn't really know. I fought Matt Ashford. He's a pain in the ass, but I know he's beatable. But I didn't get to beat him, so definitely, he's definitely up there. A couple of guys. I'm not God. I'm just really good at wrestling. So I think even they'd have to agree. I mean, Sam is definitely one of them. I give them a run for their money. They may win, but they're gonna have to earn it. So I'll take that.
Yeah, and with all the new gens in wrestling colliding with everyone nowadays, is there anyone that you want to face?
I feel like I want to fight Isaac just to see how difficult he is. I never got the chance. I don't know if he's still wrestling right now, but I don't think he is. Unless WWE. Oh, actually, he might be because I know WWE is coming back pretty soon for the Rumble.
Mhm.
But I mean, in general, I don't really eye a lot of people in today's pro wrestling world nowadays. 'Cause I'm always just focused on the next guy. I don't really have any dream matches for like who I want to face or anything like that. It's always been whoever the world champion is. If that's not me, then I want to go after them. That's been the case for me for years, literal years. I never had a dream opponent. Just always, whoever the world champion is, I want to face them. I want to take their title. I want to be the face of the company. I want to be their captain, of the company. So I guess no one in particular.
So is there anyone, so right now, currently, who would you say that you're the face of the company with? Tell me about some of the things that you're doing in federations right now.
Well, I mean, definitely. I mean, if you took a look at last year, for sure, I think that's been the story for a lot of places. I think, the guy in AXW before they closed their doors. A lot of people in AXW would agree. I'm the face of Federation Online now. I just recently lost the title to Killer Storm, but people still kind of bill me as like I am Federation Online for that. And they're doing really good. Like all these places that you've either never heard of or might have heard of, they're places that I only go to because I have fun there. They're not all like name brand. Not all of them are RWA places, even though one is actually two places are no, just one. UXW kind of put them on the map a bit. Neo would attest to that. A lot of guys there would attest to that. Longest reigning pure champion, which is a world title for them, next to the actual UXW title that Kanan holds right now. There's SCW. SCW, I think I'm the guy for that. I think for a long time they had a dry spell of world champions because they just wouldn't show up. So once I won the Mid-South title, I became the captain of the South, or the ace of the South. I think that's what they build it as. So I was kind of the flagship champion for them. RDW, I'm not there now, but a lot last year. I think I was their inaugural world champion. So I tried my best to make sure RDW was put on the map. And I mean, they've definitely surpassed all the stuff that I've done for them now. But I think for just getting out of the blocks, I think I helped RDW out a lot. A couple of places I'm trying to think because there's so many. There's so much that I did last year. It's kind of not to toot my own horn, but it's easy to sort of forget how much I actually did last year. And I mean, clearly not a lot of people talked about it either, but I think it's definitely worth noting that I had probably a career year last year because I think DXW for sure. Before they had ended, I won their world title. I've held it a couple of times, but DXW was always one of those places that deserved a lot of credit, and they didn't always get it. So I tried to make sure I was always their most dependable roster member, whether I had the world title or not. Didn't have the best match against Sama at WrestleMania, but I took part in it, so not a lot of people can say that. But a lot of places.
Who are some Fed owners in recent memory that, including WPW, because we talked about Sway, who are some Fed owners that you kind of really enjoy working with other than like most other Fed owners?
Trunks and Neo, right off the top of the head. Right immediately. Like RPW, which another place kind of falls right in that category with UXW. Probably I had the most fun there. I got to branch out from my normal shtick of D-Pain and kind of put him in a more not so aggressive mindset because I was based off of Hiroshi Tanahashi, who, if you watch New Japan, he's the ace of Japan. He kind of put them on the map. So that's kind of where I got the whole ace persona in general. It was just in RPW, but started there. He is so easygoing. He's so chill and relaxed. Trunks is really fun. And if he had an idea, he'd listen to it. Neo, on the other hand, is just like that, but to like 10. Like if you ask him for something, he will do anything in his power to make it come to life, even if it's ridiculous. And most of the time it is. And it's canon. It's all canon there. You have a lot more leeway there than you would any other place. And I'm glad that they have the success that they do now, because Neo works really hard, usually by himself, quite like I did for VCW, to make sure everyone went home happy. And for me, I really just enjoy my time there. A couple of other owners, I'd have to say maybe Boss Raymundo for CCW. He doesn't get a lot of credit for his in-ring career, but as a Fed owner, he was really fun. He was a GMT thing, but he was one of the first places that I saw kind of give the East guys a shot a little bit more, because at the time it was almost like Jim Crow laws when it came to if you were from the States, you're not getting a title shot, that sort of thing. But in CCW, that was very different. Guys like me were able to shine and do our thing. He gave me a lot of leeway. Mighty, absolutely mighty. He wanted me there specifically so he could just kind of like tell stories with my character, and they're really fun. Like he's easy to talk to. If I don't agree with something, he'll kind of be like, okay, well, how about this? And it'll make sense. So with Mighty and SCW, he's a very story-driven guy when it comes to how he does storylines in shows and stuff, but it's super enjoyable. Whether you're watching it or just being a part of it, it's really like, it almost feels like a Netflix show with the kind of stories that he tells in SCW, but if you're into that sort of thing, it's perfect. But definitely Mighty. I'm trying to think of a couple other people, because there weren't a lot of times in pro wrestling where I had fun, and that kind of sounds crazy because so many people idolize APRW and RCW and RWU, of course, and all places like that, but they just weren't. Some of them felt too corporate for me, and you can't have fun in corporate. So the
Yeah.
places that I just named were really kind of just, you didn't have to fit into the mold. The mold will just kind of, you became the mold wherever they would find a good spot for you somewhere on the card, no matter who you were, whether you've been here for 10 years like me, or actually going on 12 now that I think about it, or 12 days. They always try to cater to those people.
And there's a lot of young Fed owners that can resonate that, in the Roblania community. If there's any advice that you could tell them, stuff that you like in Fed owners that differentiate them from quote corporate, other people, what
Yes.
advice would you give? Because you've been very vocal about the new generation of pro wrestling. What advice would you give to the future, not just pro wrestlers but also Fed owners?
Treat this like a game. Nobody's getting paid. I think the only person in pro wrestling getting paid right now is LXM, and that's because he actually made a game. But I see too many people come in and try to host specifically to be like the number one show. And keep in mind, I come from 2010. Like the stuff that we have now, we wish we had back then. Like the social media, this podcast, all this stuff, pyro, music, even the type of, like, the way you're able to kind of be yourself a little bit more and show it off. Like we didn't have that. We kind of just use our imagination. So the idea of being number one was just a foreign concept to us. And we had fun. Like that's the era that I came up in. Like I spent most of my days just having fun. That's why I still do it now. I still can. I go to those places that I just listed because I can get fun, and a lot of other people feel the exact same way. And that's how you enjoy your time, not just in pro wrestling, but just on Roblox or just in your day. Some people just want a good way to relax and just have fun with their friends, and you can't do that if you're trying to think about being number one, and you got to do things like this. You got to go through joining this faction or this corporation. It's like no one's getting paid for this. Have fun with it. It's still a game. People get on my neck because I'm 23 years old and I'm still on this game. But you go on Twitch and there are people like in their 30s still playing games and having fun, which is to me like remarkable, just because that's how games are. Like they're an escape. It's fun. You don't join to be. I wasn't in pro wrestling at first to be number one. Obviously, as the years have changed, that's obviously you always want to be number one. But when I started, that wasn't the case. Every Fed owner should focus on just making sure that you make something that people would want to spend their day in, not to get over or get a bigger following on social media, but just something that if they play it, they're going to feel like they had a good day. The places that I went to when I was really young, like WWRE and RXW and all these other places, not RWU, because they spawned this idea, in my opinion. They focus on just having fun and enjoying enjoying time with friends. And I think a lot of places need to return to that, because people try too hard to be something. They tried too hard to be like a Damon or or an Isaac now or just some other role wrestler. I just want to be Edge. Like you every time, like I just posted it today when I won the Chamber. I wore red gear just like Edge did when he won the Rumble or the Chamber in 2009. For ironically enough, the exact same title, and that's why I have fun with it. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to spawn more deep pains to like make a cult around. I just want to be like Edge. He's my favorite wrestler, and it's fun. So I think just go back to doing why the reason why I did VCW for an analogy is because I wanted to do all the things that I enjoyed about wrestling, and that was like ECW. You know, it was like the extreme, random, wild, fast-paced, never pause stuff that you would see in ECW or in the Attitude Era. That's why I did it, not to be number one. And I had a lot of fun doing it. It was stressful. Don't get me wrong. Any host is going to feel a lot of stress, whether you're successful or not. Even if you're more successful, it's even more stressful. But you just have more fun doing the stuff that you actually enjoy instead of focusing on, oh, what's going to get me noticed by the RWA? Or I'm sure if I have this champion, then I know I'm going to have someone stream it and things like that. Like just have fun with it. You only have so many hours in a day, let alone a year. Like a year just passed, and I wonder how many people in Raw Wrestling who were deemed as number one really had fun. You know, I had fun because I went to the places I actually enjoyed. If I tried to go the other route and go to certain places that people deemed as the number one, I'd have a hell of a time enjoying myself. I'd be personally, and I did that before. Going to places where I just did not have fun, and I hated it. So I stopped that. I went to places that I actually have friends in that I enjoy, and I'm really happy now, no matter what people say. So just have fun with it.
Yeah, and in regards to the feds that you attend, there's certainly more. Oh shit! Fuck! I just dropped my coffee. Sorry. In regards to the feds that you listed off, you mentioned like SCW and Federation Online, and these are really like story intensive federations that have a lot of fun.
OWE too. Almost forgot OWE. I almost forgot OWE because I have a lot of fun there too. I think I'm in an onslaught match next, which is not fun, but I needed to shout them out too. But go on.
And so what would you recommend for Fed owners specifically? What do you look for because obviously we see you in a lot of federations. What would you recommend for like what things do you look for in
I go to places that don't look like APRW. I go to places that don't look like APRW, and that's not a knock at APRW. It's just I've seen this movie before. You know, like imagine if every movie you saw, whether it was deemed the greatest of all time, was just like Star Wars or just like Spider-Man. Every movie, every single one. But it's like, yeah, no, it's cool, it worked, but I've seen this one already. What makes you different from this other one? It just looks a little different. It has a more confusing tag name. No, it's not fun like that. I think a lot of places try too hard to be either just like the WWE or just like APRW. And ironically enough, they've been following the exact same template for years, whether they drop in new things or not. It kind of always follows the same template. Like the strategy that APRW had was the exact same one that RCW had, which is the exact same one that RWU had. This is like years or like kind of the same thing. And they're not all the same. Don't get me wrong. Don't take my words out of context. They all have a little bit of originality, but I can't, like, I've been here for that long to kind of like, I see something in them that just seems really corporate and really similar, you know? And I didn't have a lot of fun in those places. I had a lot of good moments. In RCW, I did DX. Same with APRW. But I did not have a lot of great moments other than that. And it wasn't because, I'm not team with Brock. No, just individual effort for me was more important than being with a big group. And I feel like groups kind of fit the mold a lot more to those places, and that's why they were more successful. Like I think you can see so many stables, heel stables at that, where they were ran by either a corporation who ran the company in general, or just something like that, where it centered around one faction, and that wasn't fun to me. It wasn't that. And this is me personally. I'm not saying this is law. If this is your bread and butter, have fun. If that's the main thing that I'm trying to say here, is to have fun with it. But for me, I want something that always looked a little different. RCW or RPW rather was like New Japan. I've never been to a New Japan thing. I didn't even care about New Japan Pro Wrestling until I saw Kenny Omega. So once I saw RPW do this, and I kind of vibed with the way they did their style. Oh, this is interesting. I'll join that, and I had a lot of fun there. UXW, it's underground, it's grunge, it does things literally the ass opposite of everything else. Kind of, up until now, like it followed the underground mold of kind of doing everything abstract and different and just bold and random, and I loved that because it was supposed to be different, and it did just that. Federation Online, granted, was just like AXW, not just like, but it definitely pulls a lot of things from them. Who also pulled things from TNX. Who, I mean, if you have a critique about TNX, you're probably right. But I enjoyed that era of wrestling, which is ruthless aggression, which a lot of places don't really do justice with nowadays. So for me personally, I love that. WPW, Sway is an amazing builder, and he went above and beyond to make tonight's show look amazing and incredible, just like he did for regular shows. He built for ORW before they tanked the way they did, but they looked really good because of Sway, not because of SDR, but because of Sway. And he's translating that with his show now. So, I mean, I can obviously respect a good builder, an amazing builder at that. So, him as well. Things like SCW, they're not even like global. They're just located in the South. They do things old school, like the type of wrestling your dad would watch, you know. I never grew up in that, but I was always curious. It looked different, and their presentation is top notch to match that era. The same reason people watch Stranger Things is the same reason people should watch SCW. They're doing the same thing, and it's super just different, and I get a different vibe from there. Like all these places give me different vibes. If I'm going to a lot of places that are the same thing, it's like eating the exact same meal every single day for the entire week. You're going to get bored of it, whether you like it or not, to the point where you get sick of it, to the point where you hate it. And that's not that. If I did stuff like that, if I didn't go to these other places and I went to just the ones that all seem the same, trying to build up my career, so to speak, which I'll get into a little bit later, it just seems dumb and it's not fun, and you're not going to value from that when you look back on it. You're going to look back at how much fun did I actually have. That's why people retire, because they feel like they didn't have a lot of, like, time and stuff aside. Some people retire because they're not having fun. And that's because they're going to a lot of places that are similar, not really willing to try anything different. I go to places that are extremely different for that reason. So that's why I'm able to have my head above water, because I'm enjoying what I do, because I'm eating different meals every day in terms of wrestling. So that's kind of yeah.
How different do you think SCW is from other federations, and do you think because they're so unique in their own way is probably why they don't get that much recognition that they do deserve, honestly?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Because some people, especially, it's kind of what's the right word for it? It's Stockholm syndrome for wrestling. I've seen it for years. People complain so much about APRW and their women's division and how Ken handles things and this and that, and they would still go back and they would still pull up servers, no sweat. You want to know who else did that? ECW. And they also filled up servers. And I'm not talking about this recent one by the one that's associated with Federation Online. I'm talking about the Zane one, because that was just like APRW except 8 times worse. And when I say exactly, not to insult APRW, but to insult ECW, because that's how they saw they could get ahead, by just copying stuff that other federations did. And it was not original. It had the ECW name, but nothing was ECW about it. It was just very like a Walgreens version of APRW, and it was trashy. It was they did things for shock value, which APRW would do a lot. It wasn't. They tried too hard to be just like these other places, and it worked because that's what people are used to. And people complain about it each and every single week. I'd see some post about it while I'm hosting VCW, mind you. People would complain about it, and they still go because they're used to it. And I mean, I feel like that's just more on the community itself. They're too scared to branch out and try other things. I think the respect that DXW and RPW and UXW and all these other places get when they end is insulting because yes, they're getting their respect, but it's at the tail end. And I saw it so often at DXW's thing. I saw it at RPW. A bunch of people were like, man, I really wish I went there earlier. I wish I was able to enjoy this so much earlier than I did because now I missed out on all these fun things. Exactly, because you didn't want to try it. It's not like it was hidden. It was there. It was always there. It was there for years. We wouldn't have reached Wrestle Kingdom like what 3 or 4? I can't remember which one we were on when we ended. But people didn't want to go to it because it was too different. Either now, granted, UXW was a little bit of a different case because they do things very late, like at 9 or 10. They have the JHW curse because they also host late. But they're still a quality show for people who can go. But for the places like DXW, places like RPW, they had no excuse. They had absolutely none. They chose not to go because they saw it as too different. They Japanese style, or it was too late, or it would look nice. He would bust his tail to make everything look nice for them specifically. Looking at the exact same stuff that I enjoy about pro wrestling, they did, but other people didn't want to do it because it wasn't what they were used to. VCW struggled with that. I think I was very much a fan of like the in between ruthless aggression and attitude era mindset when I was doing VCW, with obviously hints of ECW. That's what I based it off of with the logo and everything. But it wasn't like APRW in certain aspects. We didn't have all the same champions. We didn't always focus heavy on storylines, but it was fun. I mainly wanted it to be just fun for people who came. And guys like Brock can attest to that because he had the most fun at VCW compared to an APRW. And I say this with absolute confidence. And he was in the Hall of Fame for APRW. And he still says VCW is the best. He also was in that Hall of Fame too. But again, the federation that everyone points out, it's just it's frustrating to say the least,
Yeah. You mentioned it a little earlier, about how bigger federations are like very similar to big federations in the past. So, how do you think RWU caused a ripple effect through other federations like RCW and APRW?
They had the cooler stuff, I think, because he knew how to code. He did the lights. He had this music pack that you'd have to download and stuff, and it actually had. This is before like audios were even a thing on Roblox. It was like you download this thing that he made. I'll give him credit. He's an amazing coder, but in that same aspect, it kind of ruined what pro wrestling was because back then it was very bare bones. You kind of just joined. You would have it wasn't as organized. It was you were mostly just there for friends. I think the max server was like 20. Believe it or not. It was very small. It was for RW2. They didn't hack the system. They were the first place to hold 100 people, but like they dealt with the same thing, 20 people. And they kind of just focused mostly on the light show aspect of things. And other Fed owners at the time, like because I came up in 2010, they hated it. They absolutely hated it because it wasn't what the game was about. It was like you'd be sitting there, not really doing anything, not really wrestling. You're just watching the stuff that we're so used to now, just sitting and watching the shows. Was a foreign concept back then. You'd wait a little bit for a match, but it wouldn't be anything like it is now. Not at all. You'd be doing something in the background, but the whole lights and everything, and the way he booked things. That was the number one thing that I wanted to key on. A lot of guys like Brock came up through RWU, and for good reason. They were good, but there were a lot of other guys who got pushed aside because of that. Neo was one of them, the owner of UXW. He was kind of pushed aside to just to because he didn't fit the mold, or I think he told him to do something. It was very politics oriented. It was very much like real wrestling, and that's choreographed. You're kind of told to lose and told to win. That's how RWU was. And now nobody back then really liked that. Some people, like the newer ones coming in, thought that it was amazing because it was just like WWE. And to their credit, it was. For that time, I will not sit here and just rag on RW a lot. It was very revolutionary with the stuff that we have now. But in terms of the mindset of that just being the content of your show and mainly that, not a lot of federations realized that like people back then, that was not our definition of fun. It sucked. It was not entertaining at all. It was terrible. But I think that's where it started. And then after RWU went down, ORW was next, and they did things a little differently, but then they got the number one spot, so to speak. They took RWU's place. So they got the exact same mindset of kind of focusing on the lights and everything, not always storylines, or no, they would focus too heavily on storylines and kind of making sure that things were kind of catered to one specific guy because they were going to get them a lot of people in the arena. And it's just like it took away the fact that we do this for fun, not that we're getting paid, because we're not. So but I think that all started with RWU. So like at times when I say that Brock's the golden child, that's not an insult at all to him, because he earned a lot of things that he has now, a lot of the Hall of Fames and world title and credentials and everything. Like I'm not gonna say or knock him on that, but there are some moments where, from where he came from, I think he was a little privileged, like anyone would, being in that situation because of the way RWU was ran. And a lot of players are trying to emulate that, and a lot of other people are not having fun because of that. So, I mean, that's my take on that.
Yes, yes. I think RWU did cause a huge ripple effect, like you mentioned, and I don't know if many federations, small federations like previous years, are trying to be like them anymore, because I think, and what they're doing now is good, is focusing on themselves and building a brand for their own, and
Yes.
that's what SCW and RPW is doing. Just gonna look at chat here for a second. I don't know if Ace is still here or not, but Kira Kelly says D-Pain returned to WWE when eyeball emoji.
I don't know. I heard about the Rumble. I don't know, to be honest with you. I didn't have any initial plans to be in the Rumble, so that may not happen. I'm not too sure. But I mean, again, that's the exact same thing Edge said, because of an injury, and he ended up in the Rumble. So I don't know. If people want me in the Rumble, that's a different story. But as I'm also looking in the chat, I see someone said, "Why are you on Roblox and crying when you lose D-Pain?" I guarantee that person has never seen me wrestle, or if they have, they haven't seen me in a couple of years, because I get very frustrated when I lose because I'm a competitive person, like anyone would be. But crying and losing, I think there's a lot more people who fit that bill in wrestling compared to me. Absolutely not. So you should probably get a new narrative, bud, because that one's been shut down for a couple of years now. So get some new material if you want to strike a jab like that. So, but yeah, if the chat has any more questions.
So yeah, if the chat has any questions, I did want to ask you, talk to you a little bit about your early career, because you did mention you are probably going on 12 years now here in Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
Besides the fact of there no being renders, social media back in the day, how different was Pro Wrestling than it is today?
I think the best way to describe it is it was very new. And it wasn't taken for granted, so to speak. because the game in general, Roblox, was very bare bones. The stuff that we have now, audios, all that, like that wasn't a thing. But same with was wrestling. Like people forget the clean is just a sword tool, but put into a pillow. You know, the things that we have now, like pyro and trons and stuff like that. We just had to use our imagination. Like, and it was very, looking back on it now, it was laughable, but for that time, it was very enjoyable and it was very fun. And a lot of people were able to flesh out their imagination the way they always wanted at that time. Like things were not really given to you like they are now in terms of creativity. You had to really kind of just improvise. And I mean, as a kid, you love that. Like no one's gonna complain about. I'm sure there's a lot of people here who either had action figures going up as a kid, and I mean, of course, you didn't have arenas, full-fledged arenas. You used whatever you could to just flesh out your imagination. That was Roblox back then. That was for wrestling. Just it was very imagination oriented, and anybody back then will tell you how fun it was, even compared to now, because those are memories that you made with other people who feel the exact same way about wrestling, and it's more of a you connect on an intellectual level because you enjoy it for the exact same reason. You're all there not because you want to be the number one, but you're having fun. Like I'm personal friends with the guy who made SmackDown vs. Raw 2010, Tyler Flynn, and that's where it started for a lot of people. Because they had these morphs of like a bunch of WWE superstars like Cena, Edge, Mysterio, Orton, Triple H, Shawn, all those guys, and you just pretend to be them every day. You'd like fight other like there'd be like probably 12 little John Cenas running around that arena, trying to fight each other to see who's the number one John Cena and stuff like that. It was funny. It was fun. People wanted to just be their favorite wrestler, not be their not be the number one road wrestler, but just be their favorite wrestler. And you don't take those moments. You take those moments for granted if you didn't grow up in this in 2010 and things like that. It was very just entertaining. It was bare bones and fun. You did what you could. I think you can say that about any sport. About if you look back and look at how foreign it was. You talk to any of those guys who played back then, like in the old NFL or the NBA, like in the like 80s or whatever. Like it was fun for what they had. There was no social media to bash them. It was just fun. It was different times. You did what you could, and it was very fun in the process.
Okay, so how influential do you think social media is on pro wrestling today?
I think it is extremely. I feel like it's the best way to put it. It is taken over pro wrestling both in a positive and extremely negative way. It's positive because things like this, the podcast, the fact that like if you win something, you feel more like a wrestler now. Like the reason why I still do is because like I know I'm not gonna go to the WWE. I never had real dreams like that. This is gonna be the closest I get to being a wrestler, and I'm okay with that. I have other stuff in dreams and plans I have to do in real life that I'm pursuing actively while doing this. But it's fun, you know, having that little social media aspect. You feel like an actual wrestler. Now, granted, with that, people actually think they're actual wrestlers on here. Keeping too in tune with their kayfabe persona and stuff like that, which I just thought was stupid. D-Pain is literally just another extension of me. It's me turned up to like 11. And anyone who's friends with me who were watching this podcast would attest to that. D-Pain is just an extension of Dewey. But people, I think it's also taken a negative toll because of that. The main thing about wrestling is that the old phrase of any controversy is good controversy. So we see a lot of stuff now that is just obscene and ridiculous and just vile that people do to get a reaction. And the reason why they get a reaction is because we know we're going to be talking about it the next day, and we shouldn't. But that's how this community has been lately. It's been like that for a couple of years since Twitter became like back when Ask FM was even a thing. If anyone remembers that, let's hope they don't because it was terrible. When that used to be a thing, people would kind of do the same thing, kind of harass in DMs and just to get a reaction, you know, because Either they didn't have the skill or the talent to do it in the ring where it mattered, or just to bother people because they just want them to get a reaction. They have attention on them all of a sudden. And it just became more of every Raw wrestler, not every, let me back that up, but a couple of Raw wrestlers are attention whores. They just want that buzz around them, even if it's bad. They're talking about me. Oh my goodness, they're talking about me on this podcast. Can you believe it? And it's all negative, but they don't care. They're getting seen. Same thing on Twitter. However, I will say that it has done good even with that because there's some people in the community who needed to get out because of the things that they were doing behind the scenes. Things that are just, and in some cases illegal, but just morally wrong, and just borderline, just like if it was in real life, it'd be a different story. That sort of thing. So in that case, Pro Wrestling has done some good in that aspect, but they take it sometimes too far. Like any social media thing, I think even if you're not a part of Pro Wrestling, if you're just in a community on Twitter or just on the internet, where you can post whatever you think at any time, you're gonna see a lot of bad stuff in general. If it's not here, it's gonna be Facebook. If it's not Facebook, it's gonna be like anything, you know. So it has some good and bad, but it's taken over Pro Wrestling is the best way I can put it. And it helps, but it also sucks. You know, it depends on what side you're on at the time of it.
So recently, with all the controversies going on and what feels like a new twitlonger coming out every week, how do you think cancel culture has affected pro wrestling?
It's taken over in a negative light because there's been some cases where people will. Now, granted, let me preface this because I can already tell people are going to blow up about this. I'm not defending anybody in this at all. I'm not defending Kletcha. I'm not defending Damon. I damn sure ain't defending Kai Andrews. I'm not defending anybody of that sort. Because some of them deserved the hate they got. But on the same token, people will file pedophilia just under anything now. Like and I know you guys talked about this last week, but the Damon thing, for example, that wasn't pedophilia. It was extremely weird. It was weird, and it was like just you know. That's not pedophilia though. It's not. Like I've watched a lot of Law and Order SVU. I think I know what that is. That's not that. It's just extremely weird and odd, and but it shouldn't be labeled as that. There's a clear difference. Should he have been flamed for it in the way that he did? I don't believe so. Should have been brought to people's attention, yeah. But at the same time, when was the last time you saw Damon in a ring? I don't think this is gonna bother him one bit. Unfortunately, you know, he hasn't gone to an arena in years, you know. So whatever happens there happens there. So it's whatever. But in certain cases, I think with cancel culture, people will kind of look for something to criticize somebody on. Like I'm sure I'm trying to get canceled because I'm 23 playing Roblox. Guess what? I'm not touching kids either. You know, I'm trying to play a game. Literally just try to play a game, and people get mad at that. Tell me to leave and things like that, just because I'm a little older and I'm enjoying a video game. Same one that they're playing, actually, mind you. So,
I think the reason people get so upset by that is because of how so many people who play the game view Roblox's age demographic as a whole. Like, yeah, there is older people, but it does seem like the game could be based upon smaller age groups, you know?
to an extent, no.
Yeah.
Because you look at some of the games on the website, yeah, you see Adopt Me, but then you see like Call of Duty on Roblox and stuff. You see streamers making money with their other families playing Roblox. Believe it or not, you know, people. This is still a place where you can get money. People think that's ridiculous, and people laugh at it till they see how much money you can actually make. I'm sure one of the people who made Apocalypse Rising on Roblox made an actual video game, Unturned, on Steam, and he's getting paid for that. it's branched away from just being a normal game. It's a source of income for some people. Hopefully for me as well, because I'm also trying to develop a game. It's not just row wrestling left and right. I enjoy it a lot. That's where you guys see me. That's where I allow you guys to see me a lot. But it's not my number one focus. Like I don't talk about it left and right every day. Of course, I'm talking about it today because I mean it's a row wrestling podcast, but it's not just that. People try to define. I let you see what I want you to see in terms of my character because too many people knowing someone is a bad thing. Knowing their ins and outs of their life and everything, and I feel like that's another problem with pro wrestling. Always trying to find out too much about something that's none of their business. But it's just frustrating, because certain people kind of get shit on for no reason. I think Kaylee's one of them. I remember, what was it? It was the Rumble a couple of years ago, and Drew won. Kayle, as you know, just like me with Edge, she's an amazing, huge Drew McIntyre fan. And of course, she's going to voice that on Twitter because she's having fun. She's enjoying wrestling. And people got mad at her for that because she's enjoying something. And again, granted, she's young, but I think also because she's a girl. And people just got on her neck for that just because she's enjoying herself and minding her business. Was she trying to? It's petty, and it's to the point where like you have to look at the people telling other people to get a life.
I do think that the community has like I think I know who you're talking about because I know what you are talking about, like the whole Rumble shit. But I do think the community has changed their views on Kayle because they do see she's like is not taking this game serious and just is a positive person,
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. She's genuinely one of the coolest people I've met. She's like after the match, she was one of the first people to congratulate me, and she was in that match, in the chamber for WPW, and it's just I think so many people, they pick and choose who they give hate on because I'm sure there's a couple of people in different friend groups. Not gonna say who, but people who are watching, I'm sure you can get a small guess. There are people who are no saint, but in their little friend groups, but no one says anything because they're their boy. They're close. They're good friends with them, and they're probably guilty of some bad stuff too. Is it to that degree? Maybe not, but it's still bad. Won't say nothing though. That's their boy. Don't want to be a snitch, but anyone else though, literally could be the exact same profile. They will boycott their existence if it's possible. So it's very biased in that aspect, and it's the internet, which is why you have to take everything with a grain of salt. I've definitely begun to do that. It's been difficult because you always want to say something to those people because you know they're wrong, but a wise man once said nothing at all. So I mean that's kind of the law, just for common sense, just to not live a super stressed out life. That's just the law that you follow for me personally. So
How do you think, while we're on the topic, how do you think we can improve toxicity in row wrestling? Because there's only enough times where we could just keep telling that person to just be a good person for once,
being a good person does not much. Some people will use that as a crutch. You know who else called themselves a really good person? Zayn, and you saw the stuff that he did. I'm not talking about Zany Marks, even though he too has been guilty of some things. He hasn't been doing anything lately, from what I can tell. But the Zayn who ran ECW, he always referred to himself as a nice person. Always, left and right. Oh, Zayn is such a nice guy. How could he do such a thing? These people, it doesn't matter if you're nice. It's about being morally, knowing having morals. If you see something, call it out, no matter what. That's what a friend does. A real friend wouldn't let some terrible stuff just go by like that. And certain people need to learn that in terms of friend groups. I think a lot of people in pro wrestling they need to realize that this is a game because people take it more serious than I do. The only reason why you see me celebrating the stuff that I do is when it happens. Like I'm not left and right in kayfabe on Twitter. Half the time I'm tweeting about Avalanche games or how mad I am at the Broncos. That's it. Or just something random like that. It's not always Roblox wrestling left and right. if it happens, yeah, I'll mention it. It's cool. It's something that happened that is noteworthy for me personally. This is not law. People need to realize that people are entitled to their opinions, and even though it's not the positive opinion, doesn't mean that it's a wrong one. You know, or just because the opinion doesn't have a lot of support doesn't mean that it's wrong. I think people need to separate themselves and be a little more be more themselves and be more of an individual instead of being associated with a pack. And I'm not talking about like the associating as a league or a unstable, nothing like that. Just in general as a person. Okay, there's a lot of people in the APOS who are just themselves, you know, outside of pro wrestling, and I wish more people would do that because they view it as a game. Sure, we do our best to win at it. We'll work on every, like, from the Tron that take me for example. I'm 23. I still play this to a high level. Make it. You see the Tron that I have, the theme music, the attires, the fan shirts, everything else. But that's fun. It's entertaining for me, and it's hurting nobody in the process. It's fun because it's the things that I would want to see out of my favorite wrestler, Edge. You know, and that's the main reason why I'm still on here because it's fun. People need to get back to that. I just so happen to be deemed one of the best in the community right now because of the year that I had last year. Was that the goal? Sure. But at the same time, on that same token, I could still say, even if I was losing some of those matches, I got to spend time with a lot of people that I enjoyed spending my time with, and I could have fun. I just happened to have a breakout year last year, thank God, because um, that is always fun winning. But some people really go off the deep end when they lose, and that's where some of the toxicity begins. I see people saying stuff about their families and everything else when they lose a match to their opponent. And that's why I'm such a low key person. I wouldn't dare mention things that happen in my real life on this site to these people, knowing what happens when people have that knowledge. They just use it as a crutch to get over, to make you look or feel bad because they lost something. I may lose, but you'll never see me flip out to that extent, trying to harm people's livelihoods and hurt them personally and stuff like that. Have I done in the past? Yeah. I was extremely young then. I'll own up to that. But nothing to the point that you see now, where people insulting like relatives who are passed or just or things like that. I've seen a lot of people do that, and it's sick. So, and I guess maybe they just forget that this is an actual game, you know. So I don't know. I think a lot of people need to before they judge someone else for what they're doing, look in the mirror and see, what are you doing? And are you insulting them because you're just that bothered by their life, or in that they're kind of in a happy place and you're not? Or are you doing it because you want them to look at you and pay attention to you and notice you and things like that? I can't tell you how many times people have said something vile and bad about me, then I confront them on it, and they're just a completely different person because they've always wanted to meet me. And I shit you not, that's happened. And it's just the culture. It's not the culture, but certain people do that, and it sucks. You know, it needs to stop. But I don't know when it will, because this is a community where I'm not the first person to say it. I'm just one of the many people who have said it, and we're still talking about it today. So you see how those talks have done in the past couple of years.
Yeah. So, one more question I wanted to ask you is, while you're still here in Pro Wrestling, because I'm sure you don't have many years left on this platform, but well, in Pro Wrestling, I mean, but is there any current Pro wrestlers that you would love to step into the ring with that are like new gen?
Not particularly, to be honest with you. I feel like there's a lot of people who want to fight me more than I want to fight them. Not out of like scared or anything like that, just because I've either fought a lot of people, or that's not my goal. It's always kind of elevating a federation. That's why I want to be world champion so bad in places. I just want to elevate that space, like I did with the places I mentioned before. But I think a couple of things that I want to at least accomplish before I hang them up, which is extremely soon, and I wanted to talk about that too, actually, because now I'm at a bit of a crossroads. I made a twit longer a couple of months ago about when I plan to retire, and it was after RCW and UXW ended. And it's very difficult for me to live up to that now. And I feel like a bit of a coward if I don't retire at UXW now, because I'm doing so good in all these other places, like tonight, for example. And I feel like I could go for as long as I really want because I'm having fun and I'm doing really good. But I don't know. I'm at a bit of a crossroads of what I want to do after Wicked Tides. Because that's where I plan. I'm having a match against Undead Brock for the pure title. It's a match you really do not want to miss. But I'm at a bit of a crossroads of if I win or lose that, what it is next. Because I never was one to look at. That was the match I've always wanted. I always had my eye on. Never none of the new guys because they'll get their shot whether they face me or not in terms of being a main event guy. But I've always wanted to face Brock because I think people still get they give him more credit than me in terms of credentials and things in their career. Like people talked about Brock a lot last year, and he only fought in one place, and that was UXW. I was everywhere. I want you to go back and find like 5 posts about me from like one of those news sources. They didn't. They didn't. No one really talked about me last year. Did that bother me a lot? Yeah, but they talked a lot about Brock and his. They just did a thing the other day, like what's our analysis of Brock's career, and it was like legendary or something like that, or he's legend status.
Oh, I know what you're talking
Where's
about. Yeah.
I'm like where what about me? Because I've been doing a lot for a couple of years. I've never had something like that. Never. I get a lot of dap ups and you look up to you stuff in the like in chat and in DMs and stuff, and that's all really
Roblania could
appreciated.
totally make a documentary on you. No lie. You want?
Yeah, I might actually take you up on that. But no, really, I just kind of want some of that the stuff that I hear just to be a little bit vocal because I would hate to be one of those people. My number one fear when I leave pro wrestling is that I'm gonna get my flowers before I can smell them. You know you know what I mean by that? Like I will get all this praise and stuff, and it's like it's gonna all happen when I'm no longer around in the community anymore. It would have been nice to have that while I was going, you know, and maybe that's selfish on my part. I've never looked at it like that because the celebrities do that. If they pass away, immediately their album goes platinum, triple platinum, things like that. But when they were living, nowhere close. A lot of people, a lot of sports athletes, they pass away or they retire, and all of a sudden you realize just how good of a player they were the entire time. Now they're getting all these accolades and all this stuff. But I just don't want to be one of those people who I get all this respect and credit when I'm gone from the community because it would have been that's why I do it. It's for fun. It's fun seeing that stuff. No one doesn't like being appreciated and respected and things like that. Sometimes I feel a little more disrespected than I am respected sometimes because of some of those posts. But I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of going on a tangent now, but that's kind of how I feel about it. In terms of what I'm gonna do after after this weekend, 'cause that's when Wicked Tides is. I have a lot of thinking to do, especially now that I'm a world champion and I'm in a world title spot in a lot of places which I did not think I was going to be come this time this year. But the whole time I'll make sure that I'm having fun regardless of what I'm doing. So that's always been my focus.
Yep, and we're just about to come up on the supposed runtime that we're aiming on. So if you could leave, do you have any final comments for the Roblania viewers?
Have fun. This is a game. Have fun. I always say that at the end of some of these. I really like doing these podcasts because it's stuff that Edge would do. It doesn't always does it build up my profile, sure, but it's fun because Edge would do these. That's why I do the stuff. That's why I make so many Edge references in my career because that's my favorite wrestler. I do so many things to try to emulate stuff that he's done. It's the same stuff that I've been doing since 2010, but to a more almost literal sense. Like when Edge returned, I can't tell you how many people blew up my line, but for the most part, I'll just say be yourself, have fun while you're doing it, and all the stuff that you want to achieve in wrestling will happen naturally because people will know that you're not bullshitting it the whole way.
And we would really love to know your socials and anywhere that we can see you or watch you.
All right. Well, on YouTube, it is Dewwy HD, no space, by the way. You might get a different channel for that. I plan on returning to making videos pretty soon, probably in February. For Twitch, it's I'll just put them in the chat because I'm saying all this stuff out loud when I could be actually just linking it. So it would be twitch.tv/Dewwy5280 for my Twitch. There's a bunch of funny clips on there that I'm just gonna put them in the chat real quick. There's that.
And if you could
And-
actually send it in the group chat, that'd be awesome too. Just because the
Okay.
chat isn't on replay for the playback.
Yeah. All right. So there's that. There is obviously my Twitter that I am very vocal on, which is @justdowit10.
Real quick,
Then-
if I could just ask one quick question.
Yes, please.
SK Jericho asks, did you think of doing any other gimmick other than Edge? I'm actually very
Oh yeah,
curious on
Triple
too.
H. Triple H. I had a couple of ideas. I think Edge I just gelled with a lot more, but it was always like my favorite wrestler is Edge, but at first it was Triple H. It was heavily Triple H. Because he just looked so badass. You know, before Brock even got into, I think the Pain Agree move that Brock has now, he asked me for it because that used to be my finisher before the DTA. But it was Triple H. Like I always was a big fan of his, and I still am. So I guess other than if Edge all of a sudden just couldn't do him anymore, it'd have to be Triple H. And if Brock wanted to kick my ass for that, then I guess it would have to be like maybe. I mean, I guess either Rob Van Dam or John Cena. To be honest.
Yeah.
Those
So,
are really good ones for you, honestly.
Yeah, so
I could see you being
I
a
guess
really
one of
great
those.
John Cena.
I feel like I already am with the kind of promos I have to cut because
Basically,
people will kind of do the same. People cut the exact same promos that they'll do to John Cena, so it's like, well, I gotta come back at them like John Cena. So I mean, it's perfect. But yeah, those are all my socials for Twitch, for YouTube, and for my Twitter. And I think that's about it. I think actually. Oh wait, no, my merch. I forgot to plug my
Merchandise.
merch, my actual merchandise. It's a little pricey. Keep in mind, 'cause there's a third party for anyone who actually wanted to buy it. It's mostly not for Raw Wrestling, which is why you'll rarely see like deep pain stuff. It's mostly just Dewey, because that's where my Twitch and YouTube is. That's what I'm trying to bill it as. But I have a little bit of a merch thing going. All the stuff is designed by me. All the clothing is made by them. So I'm sorry for the price if it's a little too much. Just a quick glance or just to shout it out would mean a lot. Same with the Twitch and YouTube. And I think now that's about it. To me.
All right. So I just want to say before this stream ends, I always joke around saying that D-Pain's my favorite wrestler, but genuinely, honestly, when I think about wrestling, the past, like, really the past, I guess if I say decade, 2020 and above, but I mean, like, really, like, since the inception of wrestling, your career and your influence has been dramatic, to say the least. And people in the chat also saying that you're the reason why they joined. So I think that's really awesome. I think the work that you're doing is awesome. And I just want to say thank you for coming on to the podcast. We really appreciate it. And
It was a really good one too.
Really,
really
it
was,
was
yeah.
really fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And lastly, I just want to say thank you to the Roblania viewers. More episodes of Roblania Talk and more interviews like this coming in the future. So thank you everyone for tuning in.